Yes. Georgie wants me to talk about my grandparents. Do you want me to or not?
Yes.
All right. I lived with my mother's mother till I was about 4 years old. She was a very kind lady, and she was a seamstress at Belks in downtown Charlotte. She's probably one of the first women in Charlotte to own her own home. But all of her children worked. I think there were 6 of them, and helped out. She's a very kind lady, very religious lady. Just loved her to death. My other grandmother lived in Lillington in Harnett County, North Carolina, and she was very skinny and very old. Both of my grandmothers lived well in their 90s. I didn't see my father's mother very often, but maybe twice or 3 times. But anyway, she was just an angel of a woman. My grandfathers, I never knew either of them. I know that my mother's father worked on the railroad, and my father's father, I'm really not sure what he did, but he was a big landowner, and it was told that he was a deputy sheriff one time and also a Methodist circuit rider. But anyway, he was very, very well respected in his community, very much a leader. My mother's mother, whom I lived with as a young child, my family lived with her, just seemed to be a lot of fun, and she was a fantastic cook. I've never had fried chicken that matched hers. I mean, it was just absolutely spectacular, and especially not necessarily at supper at lunchtime, but we would sometimes go to church on Sunday nights, and we'd come back home and have the leftover chicken, and just the best stuff in the world. But I do remember being 2 and 3 years old in several incidences. But she was a very kind, loving woman, and I don't know what else to say. Has that been 5 minutes? I doubt it.
What happened when you were 2 and 3 years old that you remember?
I remember the kitchen was here, and it had a glassed-in back porch next to it, and my mother put up some type of little wooden swing in between the door to the kitchen and to the back porch, and she'd work in the kitchen, and she would swing me, and every once in a while I'd put my hand or my arm out and get hurt, and she would say, "Did Lonnie hurt you?" Anyway, and I do remember my mother washing my hands in the kitchen sink, and it was the most irritating thing to me to wash the palms of my hands. It just was, but she washed me basically in the kitchen sink because the water heater was connected to the wood stove in the kitchen. In other words, the wood stove had pipes inside of it, and that's how we heated our water. When I was 3 or 4, I really don't remember. Don't really know what time of year it was, but I know it was in the winter. I was very sick, and it snowed, and my mother got a cardboard box and tied a rope to it and pulled me around, had me bundled up and everything. She pulled me around in the front yard because my brothers could go out and play, but I couldn't because I was sick. And but my grandmother had a lady that lived in a room, had a separate entrance. She worked with her at Belks in downtown Charlotte, and she treated me just like my grandmother too. But as my grandmother got older, she finally became bedridden, and this is about time that I married your grandmother. But we went to see her, and we told her that we were moving to Waitsboro. And my grandmother says, well, I remember they lived in Norwood, and which is right up 52, and I don't know what her father did, but anyway, she remembers her father bringing her to Waitsboro on the wagon, which is about 30 miles.
That's a long way.
That's a long way. I guess it was an all-day trip. I don't know whether they stayed overnight or whatever, but I mean, I can't imagine making that trip in a wagon. You know, not only would, compared to today's standards, it would be very uncomfortable, but I don't know whether he grew cotton or what it was that he had to come to Waitsboro to sell his crops. And but Waitsboro used to be a big cotton center back the turn of the century. I think that's... Any other questions?
Not really, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.